Now joining me in the studio, I have Professor Bola Akintenwa, Director General, Bolitech Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, former Director General, Nigeria Institute of International Affairs. There's also here, glad to have him back after a short break, Chike Ogea, former Commissioner for Information Delta State, and Professor Victor Ariole, Professor of French and Francophone Studies at the University of Lagos, Nigeria. Gentlemen, we just listened to Father George Ehusani discussing the issue of national security, calls for unity on one hand by the political leadership and calls for secession on the part of other Nigerians who feel aggrieved. And he also talked about a number of other issues, the health infrastructure system in Nigeria, and whether or not it makes sense for the president of Nigeria to seek medical checkup in the United Kingdom. And he also addressed a number of issues about COVID-19, issues that are of topical interest to many Nigerians. I would like you gentlemen to take on some of those topics, and I would like to start with you, Chike Ogea. Good to have you back.
You, it's good to be back, Ruben. Yeah, thank you, thank you. I listened to the Reverend gentleman, and you can't fault him for everything he had to say. And you know, the situation in Nigeria really, it's nemo dat quod non habet, so to speak. You know, you can't give what you don't have, and everything is there for everybody to say. So, for the plethora of issues you addressed, we talk about security, we talk about corruption, we talk about the economy, because those are the three cardinal programs on which this government came into being, so to speak. The jury is out there. Everybody can feel what is going on in Nigeria, so it's not about anyone coming in a studio to say something, you know, either you're castigating the government or you're praising the government. Whatever side of the divide you belong to in Nigeria today is totally irrelevant, because what is happening can be felt by everybody. You know, that is on the one hand. On the other hand, you know, when you look at all the issues, you know, we start talking about violence in the country, about separatist agenda and all of that. You know, why all of a sudden have those issues come to the fore so much in Nigeria? I mean, it has never been perfect here, even from this republic in 1999. I was particularly involved in government at that time. But I know that the issues that we are having today, especially in the issues of security, I know it has never been this much. And whether we like it or not, we have to look at the apex of the leadership of the country at this time. What is it they are doing, or what is it they are failing to do that is causing for this kind of rancorous arrangement that seems to be going on in our body politic? These are the kind of questions we need to ask. There's no hiding anymore, because as far as I'm concerned, we are almost getting to the precipice. And if we don't pull back, and again, this is where I will also urge, and you know, the highest leadership in Nigeria, that they are the only ones that can pull this country back together again. There's so much distrust, because even from the beginning, you know, when the agenda of this administration was set with the 5% voted for me and all of that. Once that happened, you know, everything went its own way. So whether we like it or not, it's not enough for the number one man and the number two man to be, you know, talking against secession, which is what we expect. Obviously, nobody wants to see the country disintegrate, you know, under their watch. Definitely. So that is expected. Buhari and Oshibajo should continue to say that. But I want to beg the president, particularly, to go one step further. By now, it's 6 years into his administration, and he has 2 more years to go. This president must want to leave a legacy behind. Yes, he came in, you know, the euphoria of he's a good man, he's incorruptible and all of that, but all that has been messed around by the people around him. I'm sure he can see that. He doesn't need a soothsayer to tell him. So that legacy is fast going down the road. And I think he has to take certain conscious efforts to pull his legacy back from the brink. Otherwise, we are just going to have a wasted 8 years. It's going to be all motion and no movement. That's what I'm beginning to fear for Nigeria. And like we rightly said, we're all looking towards 2023 and some elections that will come at that time. But I'm saying that if certain conscious efforts are not taken by this government to bring this country together, then I don't know why we should even be so hopeful about 2023. These are the issues I'm looking at, but, you know, hey, everybody has their own ideas.
Professor Ariole, over to you.
Well, I don't think Nigeria should be talking about secession. Having viewed the situation as it happened during the Nigerian Biafran Civil War, and Nigerians should know that during that time, they were able to raise generals who never fought any war. So are we still going to be talking about secession where some people will wake up and claim heroism for not fighting any war that is beyond Nigeria? That's exactly another plan. That's how I see it, you know. But basically, we know that northeast and northwest, Nigerian borders, northeast and northwest, are completely leaking. They are leaking because, you see, sincerity is not there to tackle the inflow of enemies coming from those areas. I see it as external aggression that have been allowed to go deep into the central space, which is north central. And something has to be done very quickly. And it's not, like people say, it's not a rocket science issue to wage, you know, a barrier that makes people not to completely penetrate into the north central. So that this issue of being seen as weakling, that's those in the north central. I'm talking of Benue, Plateau, Nasarawa, Niger. They are now feeling the impact. It looks like a hotbed of infiltration from outside. And the infiltration is not coming very close from their neighboring state, but basically from the bordering countries like Niger, like Chad, like Cameroon. And so why can't the government wake up to responsibility and look out for how to secure the borders so that these evil people don't penetrate and create more damage to Nigeria? Unless there is something they are doing which we don't know. I mean, by now I expect people in the Ministry of Defense to talk of resignation, like Minister of Defense resigning or the security advisor resigning, something of that nature to prove that, yes, they are not doing their work as expected. But up to today, we don't see such things. We have seen service chiefs who are not seen to be really working, continuing their state of service chiefs up to today, and they are changing. The changes even seem to be like a succession or continuation of past service chiefs. So I think there is need for total rejig of the security architecture, which has not happened, and Nigerians are talking about it, every now and then. So the president should really come up and say, look, enough is enough. Let's stop these security chiefs or, well, if you like, the budget. I mean, we have heard of about 1 trillion budget sent to the military that is still not coming out on what to buy and what not to buy. And we have also had some service chiefs who have swindled the money and they are not yet out for probe. So there are many, many things about these security issues that the president should really come out clearly and tell Nigerians that, look, he is taking a different dimension or a different approach to it so that we all will feel one. For now, it seems as if there are openings for people to come in and harass Nigerians, and our leaders are not so much worried about it. We don't see how bandits will be in the bush and people are telling us that they are negotiating with them. It doesn't make sense.
Well, Professor,
seriously, it doesn't make sense.
That Nigerians were arguing that what the president needed to do was to change his service chiefs, and he did at some point. Maybe not at the time Nigerians wanted him to change the service chiefs. And the day he traveled to the UK for his medical checkup, he also had a meeting with his service chiefs, and he gave them marching orders that either when he was away or he was in the country, they should make sure that the problem is
addressed. But when you don't have the facility.
But you are talking about rejigging the security architecture.
It's still not okay.
That's an old
It's
narrative.
not an old thing, because these people in now are still part of the past service chiefs. They worked with them.
Well, but
why can't they tell us the mistakes those past service chiefs made that they are willing now to come out to correct? That's the expectation that we need from them. You were with them. I mean, somebody said even the defense coordinator was once a theater or a commander in Northeast. So why is he not coming to tell us this was the problem we had and we need to change so that we can perfect the situation?
But
it's
Professor
not there.
Well, yes,
you know?
Professor Ariole is talking about national security. But I would like you to address directly the issue of secession. National unity. The president, the vice president, other persons at an event held by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, leader of the APC in Kano, they were all talking about national integration, and they were saying that we are better off together than apart. Even the vice president said, look, it will be terrible for us to reach a point whereby Nigerians will have to get a visa to go to Kano. I guess he was exaggerating, but metaphorically, he was talking about the imperative of national unity.
Let me respond to all the questions using George Husani's submission as an intro. George Husani reminded us all that he has been saying in the church during his sermons. Very beautiful.
Are you a Catholic, Prof?
I'm not a Catholic, but listen. You see, he spoke from three perspectives. He spoke, he submitted to us as a scholar. He talked to us as a child of God. Then he also talked to us as an advocate. First of all, as a scholar. And that's where I will take my distance from the submission of Professor Ariole, who told us that we should not be talking about secession. You see, what is ideal, I always say, is quite different from what is on the ground. Husani told us what is on the ground. He reminded us about the situational reality of geopolitics in Nigeria. So in this case, it's quite different from dreaming. Now, for instance, he gave us a number of examples, and we cannot talk about corrigendum. Probably we should talk about addendum in this case. One addendum here is, look, you are talking about no secession, but you are consciously engaging in acts of nepotism. People will draw the attention of Mr. President to it, but he doesn't bother.
Well, Professor Akintenewa, on that note, we need to take a short break. When we return, I'll come back to you. The Sunday Talk Show will return. When we return, the conversation will continue. Don't go away. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Thisday Live, the Sunday Talk Show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me in the studio, Professor Bola Akintenewa, Director General, Bolitag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Chike Ogia, former Commissioner for Information, Delta State, and Professor Victor Ariole, Professor of French and Francophone Studies at the University of Lagos, Nigeria. Well, before we went on break, Professor Akintenewa, you were responding to some of the issues raised by Father George Husani, and you were talking about something to eat. Please be careful when you talk about food. Otherwise, you make me hungry, and I could give you a bill.
Yes, you see, I was trying to make the point that I and Father Ehusani belong to the same school of thought. Because one, he first of all spoke as a scholar by emphasizing the scientificity of the dynamics for possible secession. And I said that Professor Ariole cannot say we cannot discuss secession. It will not be scholarly by not discussing it. It is simply because Nigerians refuse to address critical obstacles to national unity.
The president, not Nigerians.
Well, whether it is the president or the people can as well compel their president to dance to their tune as well. That's why you have lobby groups, pressure groups, etc. all along. We have problem of leadership, and we also have problem of followership. That's why I talk about the people. So the issue here is that, for instance, before we went on break, I raised the issue of nepotism. The nexus between nepotism and secession is clear.
I agree with you, Toto.
So you can see now that when we tell Mr. President that, look, how will you explain the fact that the DSS recruited about 700 people and 500 will come from the north? There's no explanation, no answer. You go to NNPC, the first 21 most senior positions, they are also from the same ethnic group as his. People complain, but he doesn't have any particular answer. So as a scholar, scholars are supposed to observe and draw attention to that. And that's what Ehusani has done. Then he spoke as a child of God. When you are talking about the Tanzanian leader.
Magufuli.
Yes, Magufuli. Now, he raised the issue that, look, you cannot readily fault his position. And he brought in the factor of prayers, using the European countries as an illustration to say, look, in spite of their development and so on and so forth, prayers, he said, we can still be praying.
Isn't that metaphysics, Prof?
Well, look,
these are metaphysical projections.
We can describe it. For him, his submission to me is very realistic. The third level of his submission is advocacy. He quarreled with, let's say, a World Health Organization single-handedly as an agency, all right, dictating to the whole world. And he's asking for, diversification of such agencies in such a way that we will have different sources of policy direction. I cannot agree more with him. This is the position we have been talking about. Please, in this country, this same country, in the early 60s, when Jaja Washuku was external affairs minister, he drew the attention of the whole world that under no circumstances will Nigeria accept the principle of non-intervention. In the case that, look, Silvanus Olympio was very friendly with Nigeria. He believed in a good neighborliness and therefore said Nigeria will intervene. He also drew attention to the fact that appetite can never be considered an issue falling within the domestic purview, competence of any sovereign state, that it crossed abroad, that Nigeria will accept. As a matter of fact, Nigeria is on record to have printed in Nigeria's passport, the holder of the passport, the inner hardcover. It is printed that the holder of this passport has the right to fight with whatever means available to the holder, appetite, in all its means. Okoyaripo, under Gowon, he was Commissioner for External Affairs. He made it clear that Nigeria will not accept the use of Africa merely as a source of raw materials for the development of Europe. Why? They are now saying that, look, Nigeria should be able to engage in the conduct and management of African affairs in particular, world affairs in general. So in this case, Ehusani cannot be more correct. Why would the World Health Organization, in which Nigeria will not have any particular influence, major influence, when it comes to this matter. So I agree with him in essence.
Okay, Prof, we need to move on and take our next subject, and this has to do with President Muhammadu Buhari, who is facing criticism for heading out on a 2-week medical trip to the United Kingdom, days before resident doctors embarked on an indefinite strike, which paralyzed medical services at public hospitals, leaving thousands of patients unattended to. The National Association of Resident Doctors had given the federal government a 1-week ultimatum to improve the wages and allowances of doctors to avoid the indefinite strike, which started on Thursday. Following the backlash, the presidency has defended President Buhari's medical trip through the senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity, Garuba Shehu, saying there is a misconception of the president's trip as he's only retaining his medical doctors who have been monitoring his health in the last 30 years.
This is something he has done for so many years, even before he came to office. Every year he had appointment with these doctors and he went there to do it. The only anomaly this time around was that COVID prevented this kind of trip throughout 2020. So he has lost some period. The last time he was there, more than 1.5 years back. But so he's using that opportunity to do what is regular.
Anything that has to do with health cannot be described as sudden. When it comes, it comes. You know that since the president came back in August 2017 from his medical vacation then, his health has held on very well. Last year, it's doubtful whether he went out. So if it is time to do it now, then it's time to do it.
Well, presidential spokespersons there justifying President Buhari's medical trip to the United Kingdom. Chike Ogia, let me start with you again. What's your reaction? Does the president have the right to just seek medical help anywhere? Is the reaction by Nigerians not a case of overreaction? And do you share the view expressed by Father George Ehusani that, in fact, the medical infrastructure in Nigeria can handle or should be able to handle routine medical checkups? Quickly.
Yeah, we have to be able to compartmentalize this situation we are dealing with. Ordinarily, any Nigerian, I'm sure, who can afford to have medical treatment anywhere should be able to. It's a free country. We're living in a democracy and all that. But then, the case of the president, we have to take it in isolation. For the simple reason that this was a man who came against the backdrop of a lot of promises. And one of the things he said himself while he was coming in was that he did not understand this whole concept of medical tourism. He said it himself. In fact, it is news to me, which I'm just hearing from Garuba Shehu, that this man that I thought was the epitome of everything Nigerian had over the years, even before he got into office, been going for medical treatment abroad. But so be it, The point now is that the timing, again, becomes a bit of an issue. The president leaves the country a couple of days to a whole medical and healthcare arrangement.
At this point, Chike Ogia, let me interrupt you. We'll take a short break. When we return, this is Live, the Sunday talk show. We'll continue, and I'll come back to you, Chike Ogia. Stay with us. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me, Professor Bola Akintenewa, Director General, Bulitac Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Chike Ogia, former Commissioner for Information, Delta State, and Professor Victor Ariole, Professor of French and Francophone Studies, University of Lagos, Nigeria. Well, Chike Ogia, before we went on that break, you were commenting on issues of medical tourism.
And like I was saying, ordinarily, everybody has a right to seek medical attention where you're comfortable and where you can afford. But the only point I wanted to make was that, unfortunately, it fell in the case of this doctor strike. And, you know, it doesn't make the president look very good, you know, being that, hey, Nigeria, we've had 6 years to try and do something about our healthcare services. And obviously, you know, we still cannot take care of our president, who is the #1 citizen, who we need to be well and alive and hearty, so that, you know, the company, because what we need to achieve in Nigeria, we have to make quantum leaps. We have lost too much, you know. So let's leave the rhetorics of whether it was right or it was wrong. That's not my issue. I just want a situation that would help this country move forward, because we have to move forward, whether we like it or not. So be that as it may, I hope the president, you know, gets the medical attention he requires and deserves, and he should come back, and all hands should be on plan, because we have so much to do and the time is short. That is just my own take on all of this. Thank you.
Well, I mean, very quickly, I think the point needs to be made that we do not have anything against the president in terms of his security, because the health of the president is part of national security. And there are many individuals who go abroad to seek medical care. But at the same time, Nigerians have every reason to be concerned about the state of health infrastructure. The two issues are separate. And that was the point being made by Garuba Shehu and Femi Adesina, that the president has maintained over the years a particular routine. He has a medical record with his doctors, and that's just the way it is. But in any case, let's move on and look at another subject. More than 20 heads of government and global agencies are calling for an international pandemic treaty to help the world deal with future health emergencies like the coronavirus pandemic. Again, that the COVID-19 crisis has posed the greatest challenge for the global community since the late 1940s. The joint letter, published in newspapers around the world, includes the signatories of the World Health Organization's Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, French President Emmanuel Macron, and German Chancellor Angela Merkel. The main goal of such a treaty will be to strengthen the world's resilience to future pandemics through better alert systems, data sharing, research, and the production and distribution of vaccines, medicines, diagnostics, and personal productive equipment.
COVID-19 has been a harsh reminder. No one is safe until everyone is safe. And it's why leaders from every region of the world have come together to propose collective action at international level. Immunization is a global public good, so we need to be able to develop, manufacture, and deploy vaccines as quickly as possible. And we also need to ensure universal and equitable access to vaccines, medicines, and tests.
In the treaty, as I said, we cannot say this is in, this is out, because member states will start the negotiation. And we hope to have a resolution by May when the member states sit for the World Health Assembly. So anything that the member states would like to have to strengthen national capacity and global capacity, of course, they will consider. Thank you. But we hope it will address the challenges I already outlined, at least the 3 challenges: sharing information and sharing pathogens and sharing technology, sharing products, including vaccines. That's what we hope. But I think that will be for negotiation of all the member states.
Well, Professor Akinjanawa, let me start with you, although I know you are a vaccine skeptic. But this is about global cooperation, global solidarity to deal with a major problem that the world is confronting at the moment. And we have more than 20 leaders signing this particular treaty. But what is curious for me is that the United States and China are not yet part of that alliance. Is it possible, and Russia, and Japan, very good. Is it possible to have, you know, a pandemic treaty without these big countries that dominate the global economy?
I think, first of all, we should commend the initiative of seeking to have negotiated and signed a pandemic treaty. It will be commended for 2 or 3 reasons. The first is that the initiative, a will-be pandemic treaty, has a reactive prevention character. Reactive prevention, that is, we are already experiencing COVID-19 pandemic. But it is believed that, look, in the foreseeable future, there may be more terrible pandemics, even than COVID-19. And they now want to prevent an occurrence of that type of pandemic. So, from this perspective, I think it is commendable. Since the world does not want to be caught unawares, in other words, since we want to be proactive and ensure that a new pandemic, let me note the fundamental difference between an epidemic and pandemic in this case. It is the universality, the global scope of impact that makes the difference. Pandemic is universal in character. It covers virtually everybody. Epidemic is limited. So when we now talk about a pandemic, the World Health Organization, the world leaders are now saying that, okay, let us prevent the whole world being caught unawares again. So from this perspective, it is the generality of the world that is being protected. More importantly, the approach adopted is holistic in character. They talk about all societies, all governments to be involved. So they are now looking at the solution from the perspective of everyone having something to contribute to it. But most unfortunately, you drew attention to it yourself. Those who are directly responsible in terms of the genesis of the controversies surrounding COVID-19, these are the countries that have, up till this time, not indicated any interest in signing. Russia has not signed, US has not signed, Japan has not signed, China has not signed. But the controversy started at the level of China and the United States. United States accused China, saying that Hunan promised that probably they were trying to come up with, bacteria.
No, but there has been a WHO group of international experts who have investigated that, and they have told us that Wuhan may not, in fact, be the epicenter, and that there was no laboratory accident. They already dealt with those conspiracy theories promoted by President Trump.
Well, you see, you are right. But the mere fact that you are right does not necessarily neutralize the point I'm making, which is still valid. You see, the beauty of it all, as I've always said, is that there are always many versions of the truth, depending on the period you are considering. Is it not the American scientists that were also involved in Hunan province research? They were the same people. So, and in this case, the Chinese paid the American scientists, all right, on contract. So, you see, truth is always constant. The mere fact that we have all these conflicting something gives rise to these conspiratorial questions we've been talking about. But the issue now is that if we are now asking the totality of the world, including civil society organizations, including governments, let there be seriousness of purpose. The limitation, however, as of today, in an increasing globalizing world, you see, the leading countries of the world, the great powers, the medium powers, They don't like multilateral diplomacy.
Yeah, but
they
Professor
emphasize...
Ariole, let me come to you. Despite the attitude of Russia, Japan, United States, and China with regard to this, pandemic global treaty, is it not a good signal that what the WHO had been talking about global solidarity and cooperation, isn't that what this treaty really represents in real sense? And is it not, as a work in progress, something that at the end of the day we could have, other parts of the world buying into it and ensuring the equity and justice that the Gavi Alliance and the WHO have been talking about?
Well, everyone knows that 75 years backward, after the Second World War, United Nations was formed so that this solidarity will be consolidated, that the whole world will see themselves as one in terms of facing threats and, if you like, facing peace also. And peace is what we are in now to talk about, because the health of the generality of the world is at stake. And we have seen it in vaccine distribution. Africa is not taken into consideration in the vaccine distribution, and is getting worrying by days about what that will portend for Africa. Luckily, as it is said, that the race is neither for the strong nor for the swift or for the most powerful. You could be disturbed that at the end of the day, maybe the weakest could not be the one upon which the chain could not really fall on. So we need to really, this solidarity is important, this pandemic treaty is important, but I still want people to look at it from biosecurity perspective. Like the Commissioner of Health in Lagos State said, the biosecurity perspective of it is important, and it is proactive to avoid pandemic or epidemic. All in all, Africans have been suffering from one epidemic or the other. The world has never been very conscious about what Africans are suffering, like Ebola and whatever. Now that it is the whole world that is being affected, they are talking of pandemic treaty. It's okay, but they should also mind about the biosecurity issue. Everything they do affects Africa, even climate change. Africa does not cause climate change, but it affects Africa. Africa does not cause virus issues that go into pandemic.
We had Ebola in Africa.
But Ebola, it's also part of, yes.
Exactly the facts.
No, Ebola is also something that is experimental. Of course. People came to experiment.
From Congo and other parts of
there's experimental issue in Ebola.
The United States was carrying out research in Liberia.
There is experimental issue on Ebola.
And
which,
the victim that came from Congo to Liberia, all right, was... The literature is there.
Professor,
we need biosecurity.
This is your conspiracy theories.
No, it's not conspiracy.
No, it's not conspiracy.
Not supported by the facts. But
no.
Let's take a quick break.
Facts.
Okay, let's take another short break. Let's take another break. Here on Thisday Live, the Sunday Talk Show. We'll return shortly, and the program will continue. Don't go away. Stay with us. Welcome back to Thisday Live, the Sunday Talk Show here on the Arise News Channel. Still with me here in the studio, I have Professor Bola Akinterenwa, Director General, Bolitak Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, Chike Ogia, former Commissioner for Information, Delta State, Nigeria, and Professor Victor Ariole, Professor of French and Francophone Studies, University of Lagos, Nigeria. Chike, let me come to you quickly on this issue of the pandemic treaty that was signed by about 28 world leaders. We seem to have a disagreement here. I don't seem to agree with some of the views expressed by Professor Akinterenwa and Professor Ariole. But how important, in your opinion, is this pandemic treaty that is supposed to promote global solidarity, equity, justice with regard to the global immunization program for COVID-19?
Well, basically, for me, I don't see any, excuse me, I don't see any issue here at all, because it is clear that in the case of a pandemic, the whole world is just as strong as its weakest link. It is obvious. So if Russia, Japan, America, they want to keep playing those United Nations games of veto, the kind of veto power where one vote is equals to 1 million and all of that they play out there, they themselves, I'm sure they know that they have everything to lose if they bring that kind of situation in the case of a pandemic. I mean, the professors, that's what they do. They profess, they research, and all of that. So I like the way they look at these issues. But for practical people like us, you know, I have been involved in this pandemic. I have had a lot of personal, deep losses, and I know what it is all about. In fact, nothing has defined my life more than this pandemic. And I can assure you that the superpowers, as they were, for whatever reason, for whatever games they want to play, they themselves, without being told, will realize that the world has to take care of everybody. Because, I mean, remember when we stopped the international travel and all of that? You saw how all the economies tanked downwards, and you saw the kind of global economic loss it was for everybody. And then you now want to say you don't want to cooperate with the other people, you want to do this, you want to do that. It's not even possible. That's the point I'm making. So they can say all of that. I think it's just rhetoric. At the end of the day, in the case of a pandemic, it must be holistically approached, and there must be you must carry the whole world along, because the one person you leave behind might be the greatest risk for you yourself. That is the truth.
Very good point, Chike Ogia. And on that note, let's move to our last topic for this episode of the program. On Friday, Niger, the Republic of Niger, had its first democratic transfer of power after Muhammadu Buhari was sworn in as president. The inauguration happened just days after the government thwarted an attempted coup by a section of the military on Wednesday. Muhammadu Buhari's administration faces unprecedented threats from Islamic extremists near the country's troubled border. Mali has a long history of the military seizing power by force since its independence from France in 1960. And the same with Niger. There was tight security in the capital Niamey ahead of the ceremony, 2 days after soldiers opened fire on the presidential palace.
This election establishes for the first time the democratic transition of our country. I, Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Republic, elected according to the laws, solemnly swear to respect the Constitution and the honour that the people gave to me, to loyally fulfil the functions with which I am provided to do.
Dans la nuit du 30 au 31 mars 2021,
on the night of 30th, 31st March 2021, an attempted coup was formed. An investigation was opened. Investigations, we continue to identify and arrest the perpetrators and their accomplices in order to bring them to the justice. The same applies to their internal and external investigators. Several people linked to this coup attempt have already been arrested, and others are being sought. The government condemns this cowardly and backward act aimed at jeopardizing democracy and the rule of law to which...
Well, very quickly, Professor Ariole, the last time we took this topic, you were very passionate about it. Yes. Now Muhammadu Buhari, believed to be more of an Arab than an African, has taken over. He's been Minister of State in the presidency, Minister of State for the Interior, and he's talking about dealing with the issues of security and education in Niger. What's your take, particularly in terms of the Nigerian interest about this development in Niger?
It's very basic. I like the angle he takes it, security and education, because these two things
He's talking about Renaissance Act 3.
Yes, it's a very, very important issue to Niger. And Bazoum is somebody who has been allowed to be included in the ruling caucus of Niger Republic, being an Arab, and we know the percentage of Arab in Niger is not up to 1%. So there is need for him to talk about reconciliation. And I know he's going to do that, mostly being somebody who went to school in West Africa also. All these leaders of French-speaking West Africa, they know Bazouma. People like Macky Sall in Senegal, people like the man in Haute-Volta, and, well, the deposed president of Mali, all happen to know, they know themselves, and they are part of the caucus of Francophone-speaking West Africa that are ruling the West Africa. So I expect him to do well, and I expect a French military that is still the one who has been outsourced to handle their security to really take care of the situation. But my worry is that it should not be like we saw on Amani Diori, their first president, who was not completely supported as such. And Amani Diori was somebody who wanted also inclusiveness and outwardness and more Pan-Africanist than other people. I just pray that the French military that is still in charge within the space there, beyond the American drone center that is there, take care of Bazouma's wish of having educated Nigerian and a good security post for Niger Republic. Otherwise, Nigeria is also in trouble, because when we talk about Northwest, whether Kaduna or Kanu as a border, Zamfara as a border, Kanu as a border, all these are related to Niger. And so we pray that these 7.4 million Niger youth who are doing nothing don't invade Nigeria one day. So we should also be mindful of what goes on in Niger Republic.
Yeah, you are quite correct, Prof. Niger has a growing young population. But Professor Akintenwa, let me come to you very quickly. We have just about a minute. Maybe you'll talk about Muhammadu Issoufou.
Yes. Bazouma is a right-hand man of Issoufou.
Yes.
So his election cannot just be thrown away. Secondly, these are people that are most likely to protect Western interests in Niger. That's why he has to be there. But note, you know, elections in Niger, they have 2 rounds of election. The first round in January, on the day of victory of Bazouma, there was an attack. 100 people were killed. Now, 2 days to the time of his inauguration,
there was an attempted coup.
There's an attempted coup. That's to let you know that the future, there will be political instability if care is not taken.
Well, Nigeria's strategic interest in Niger will also be very important. And I hope that we'll pay attention to that in terms of our foreign policy process, having identified with Muhammadu Issoufou, who got a street named after him in Abuja and who won the Mo Ibrahim Leadership Prize. Well, on that note, we got to go. You've been watching Thisday Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From our entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again next Sunday. Thank you.